They were like, "Have you read the minutes?" And I was like, "No." So it's on the last page.
I guess I don't need mine. Security pass.
Okay.
Okay.
You tested that?
That's easier, but
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the meeting of the planning board on September 9, 2021. We have 10 items on our agenda tonight, and let's start out with number one. First, I would like a motion to open the meeting. Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Item number one on our agenda is to adopt the meeting of the planning board on August 5, 2021. I've read looked at the minutes and I have no comments. Are there any other comments
No comments.
or corrections?
I have to recuse myself since I missed all
You
of
missed
it.
this part of it. All right.
All of it. except for the
I
first.
move that we approve. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
I,
Thank you very much. Item number two, 156 Palisade Street, continuation of public hearing for site plan approval for proposed new multifamily building.
Leave it on, can I take it off?
It is.
Good evening, for the record, Corey Solomon from Zion and Steinmetz, here tonight on 156 Palisade Street LLC. Here with me are Michael Lang, the principal of 156 Palisade, as well as Christina Griffin and Suzanne Levine, our project architects. So I know I'm new to the projects, but I know it's been before you for quite some time now, and I understand there's been certain issues pertaining to density, coverage, size of the building, height, parking. I think our latest submission addresses a lot of your concerns. We're proposing an approximately 8,300 square foot building, 3-story multifamily building, 4 units, one bedroom, 1 2-bedroom, and 2 3-bedroom duplexes. We reduced the coverage and the height to comply with the MDR2 regulations. We increased the side yard setback to 12 feet to address one of the neighbors' concerns. We moved decks from the front of the building. Your request and developed a streetscape to show you, and we're providing parking at the basement level. Unfortunately, this code compliant plan there's some issues with constructing it and changing grade from the west side back to the east. So we've also developed an alternative that is still compliant with the coverage requirements, but we need a little relief from the height and a little relief from the parking. So I'm going to turn it over to the architects to walk you through that plan, and we'll get back to the discussion.
Good, thank you.
I'm not able to share, yeah. Let's see. You're welcome.
Magic.
Good evening.
Hi.
I'm Christina Griffin. Can everyone hear me?
yes.
Okay. Okay, we submitted a new proposal. We've reduced the number of units to 4. This is a building that is 3-story, about 8,300 square feet. And after our last meeting, we looked carefully at zoning regulations, and we have an as-built, as-of-right scheme to show you. And we also have some schemes that we want to go over with you because there are just some difficult situations that come up because of the grade that make it necessary for us to ask you to consider options that are just slightly different than the requirements. We know we're following the new MDR2 zoning regulations that were recently adopted. This is a very quick sketch, and I'll say it's quick because we're still searching for the right solution for the building. It's just an image to show 3-story building access down below and the 3rd floor setback. We'll go back to that in a minute. Okay. So we have, here is our zoning data. We have now the lot coverage is 32.8%, which is the maximum allowed. We reduced the lot coverage to make sure it met the zoning regulations. I'm going to show you scheme A and scheme B. Both schemes meet the lot coverage. We have 3 stories for both. The scheme A is code compliant at 37 feet and scheme B is 39 feet, 0.8 feet. And all the setbacks meet the side yard, rear yard, and front yard. The front yard, we did a calculation. We have 7.3 as the average front yard setback, and we're proposing a 13-foot setback. And we actually have increased the one side yard on the south side to 12 feet rather than the 10-foot minimum, just to try to get a little more space there between the new driveway and the neighbor's property, which I'll show you in a minute. We've provided a streetscape. The streetscape is showing our scheme A that has 37 feet maximum height, 30 feet to the top of the roof of the parapet at the 2nd floor, and then the 3rd floor is set back. From there, as you can see, the height of the building is similar to the buildings on each side. And within the range of heights that are there, there's different heights on the street, 2 to 3 story buildings. Down below is a context area site plan, and we're showing the shape of our building. As you can see, we have a 13-foot setback. We actually have that setback really to make sure we can put in the steps up to the front entry and a handicap ramp. As you can see, that setback is within the range of setbacks on the street. Actually, most of them are closer to the proper line, but the ones to the right, the buildings to the properties on the right, which is south of the building, are very similar. Our garage plan for scheme A, which is shows 7 parking spaces. This is what we would need for the 4 units. There are the units consist of a 2-bedroom, a 1-bedroom, and 2 3-bedroom duplex units. And this layout shows that in order to get the required parking on site, we need to bring that garage back into the hill. And we did a diagram here to show how much excavation we'll need for that. And we have lowered the building from where we had last time to show the 37 feet to the very top. And in doing so, we have a big cut into the back of the grade and a double retaining wall in the back to get space for outdoor space for the lower units. So our first floor plan, we also flipped the floor plans on the first floor so that these units would have their living room open to the yard, so that those units would have backyards. We have on the left 2-bedroom, 2-bath, about 1380 square feet, like that. And on the right, a 1-bedroom unit. We have a handicap ramp and stair coming up to the entrance, egress stair and elevator. And on the second floor plan, we have our duplex units. You would come up the stair or elevator to these units, and there's 2 bedrooms on each, on the second floor level, and then up on the 3rd floor. each unit has a master bedroom and a family room that has access to their outdoor space, which is in the front of the building, which is a roof deck. So we've eliminated the balconies. Instead of balconies, we have outdoor space for the first floor units in the back and for the duplex units in the front, but tucked behind the parapet wall on a roof deck. And those units, and then there's also access to the very top roof. These are our elevations for Scheme A. The width of the main building is, I think, hard to see, 33 feet 7. So it's under the 40 feet. That is the maximum in the guidelines for Palisade Street. And then this piece to the right where the garage is set back 15 feet. And the reason why it's set back is when we lowered the building, we needed to get a ramp driveway down into that garage, and we needed a certain length to get that to work. Originally, we had only a 5-foot setback. And these are our elevations. Again, we're showing a very simple design right now. West elevation has roof decks, outdoor space on top at the 3rd floor. And then the east elevation is showing glass doors on the 1st floor, allowing access to backyards for those units. And if you can see the dashed line just about on the north-south elevation. So there is a part of the building that is tucked under the grade, and we're going to have to wrap the back with double retaining wall around the sides to get clearance for those windows. Now, we'd like to ask the board to consider a Scheme B. And the reason for that is this is a very steep site. It goes up 15 feet. If you go from the center line of the site at the sidewalk, we have elevation 109. And then all the way in the center line in the back of the property, it's 124. So there's a difference of 15 feet. So we wanted you to know that we felt that it was important to consider maybe another plan where we wouldn't have so much excavation, which we know is not just expensive, there's a lot of disruption. So Scheme B is a garage that would have 1 parking space per unit. Instead of 7, we have 4. And that's so that we can keep the back wall of that garage aligned with the building above. And we know there's a parking lot across the street. So we're thinking that the residents could use parking there to make up the difference for what they need. This scheme also has an advantage that the driveway going into the building won't be as steep. We had a 12% slope, but this is a very gentle slope. We also has an advantage of getting the handicap accessibility during this lower level. And then this section for Scheme B shows the dash line of the grade, and it's hard to see, but this retaining wall is only 4.5 feet high. So we have a much gentler, fit onto this site by just raising the building up. We raised it up for Scheme B 2.8 feet. The reason for that number is that happens to give us the handicap access into the lower level. So we need it either on that level or we need it on the 1st floor. But if we raise the building up, we cannot get it basement level. We'd have to do it in this level. We also like the idea that this wouldn't need as much, wouldn't have as steep a driveway, wouldn't create as many storm drainage problems. And we looked at the area, or looked at the area and the volume of excavation of Scheme B compared to Scheme A. I'm just going to jump right to that slide. Here's a blow up of the difference in Scheme A and Scheme B. Scheme A, which pushes the building down to meet that 37-foot maximum height, and we have 1,768 cubic yards of cut. And then down below scheme B, we have only 1,012 cubic yards. The difference is, I think, about 560 or 650 cubic yards. And we looked at the cost of that. So we know that all that cut, and not only adds, it's a lot to excavate, but also is going to lead to higher retaining walls around the building. And so we wanted to ask the board if they would consider perhaps this scheme B, that height of 37 feet maximum is goes from the zoning regulation is from the center line of the sidewalk in front of the building, but because of the steep slope of this particular site, feel that is a very really has a negative impact on the building when you have to fit the building into a steep grade like this. So this scheme is actually 39.8. It happens to be that number because that's the allows us for that handicap access down below. And that height is the very top of the building, 39, which is the third floor that is set back 15 feet from the front wall of the building. It actually jogs, so it varies. And I'll show you that plan. So scheme B is exactly the same as scheme A, really, except now we have the handicap access to the lower basement level. And we have the same layout, same lot coverage. It's just the garage has only 4 units and 4 spaces. And up at the third floor, the height of each of the floors go up to that 39.8. I'm sorry, this is just for information in case we all need to refer to the photographs of in case you want to look back at the photographs of the site. One of the things, and if you look at our, going back to that streetscape, I guess I just want to point out that these sites here, the last few lots, have pretty steep sites. I'm not sure about the ones down below, but you can see that the building on the right, I think, is 154, and the building on the left, they also have like almost a full height type of, there's a garage and entry down below, and then this one has low steps going up, but this one on the left has a full entry there. And part of this is because of the grade problems that are on those properties. And then back to our 3D sketch, again, very rough, needs to be developed. This is representing the scheme B, and that's all we have prepared for tonight, but I wanted to see, I did this on SketchUp, and then I did a hand-drawn overlay so the SketchUp is set so that the top of this third floor that's set back is 39.8, and the top of this wall in the front is 32.8. And scheme A is lower than this. We have this at the front parapet at 30 feet and the back very top at 37 feet. So in most respects, the building meets the code except for the height on scheme B. And what we'd like to do, if we decide to go in this direction, we would definitely keep those raised planted areas in the front with the retaining wall, because that helps to soften the height of the building, which is already existing. And then you would have your entry to the main building on the lower level, garage door on the right, very gentle slope into the building, and that would give you access into the units above. As you can see in the back, there is a bulkhead allowing a stair access to the roof. So we would like to know your comments on both these schemes.
So Christina, do you
the
have a,
underlying
I know in
discussion.
the submission, the elevation, the street elevation is scheme A.
Yes.
Is there have you tried putting the scheme B elevation into the overall streetscape?
You know,
Or not
I
yet?
think because of vacations and everything
Okay.
and the time between meetings, we couldn't get there.
Mhm.
And we would like to do that. So it's this. And we might want to draw this in a different way because, well, you know, the main facade is 15 feet beyond the garage, beyond the wall of the garage. And the third floor wouldn't be so strong, but we will need to put this on the streetscape so you can see that. And we're going to be doing that depending on your comments tonight.
So in scheme B, you could theoretically bring, in terms of the front setback, as you point out, there's the requirement, and then there's kind of looking at, there's this other thing you can do, which is to average the other setbacks along there. In scheme A, obviously you have to make room for the handicap ramp. In scheme B, you could theoretically also, to reduce some of the excavation, you could theoretically pull the building. a
Yes,
little bit
we
forward.
actually, we know that and we just haven't had the time and we'd like to see if we can do that as well to help reduce the excavation in the back.
Right.
Well, I think this is it's a nice step forward, and I think we appreciate your hearing what the board has been saying and trying to get the building to fit more comfortably into the streetscape.
I agree.
I really appreciate that you have a scheme that is compliant. After 20 meetings, it's probably wonderful. And I think it makes us look much more favorably on little tweaks that'll help out. So,
Well, I think scheme B will not be compliant.
Right.
Scheme A is compliant.
correct. Scheme A is compliant.
I mean, I think it's important. I also think that, like, my first reaction, I mean, I was only looking at scheme A. My first reaction was, okay, we're there in terms of like the overall direction of this thing, right, finally. But I guess the board has to discuss the scheme A versus scheme B in terms of the implications for parking, height of the building and the excavation. So who wants to?
It would require waivers for the parking, the height. Is that
Yes,
from A? If you go to B, that there are two waivers that you're looking for.
for B, yes. I also want to point out, in Hastings, we had a maximum height for all buildings that went from the lowest point to the highest point. And we have so many buildings that look like they're submerged and they've had flooding problems. And finally, that code was changed. Well, probably 10 years ago, but I've been in Hastings a long time. But and so sometimes when you have a steep slope and you have a maximum height at the lowest end, it may cause, it forces you to push the building into the ground.
Right, which I appreciate that. I mean, it's unfortunate that the test run for the kind of new zoning happened. Most of the rest of the block is pretty level.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So it's unfortunate, and I think it's worth considering for all of us to consider the fact that this site does have this huge grade
Right.
change. I think that's a legitimate concern. I don't know that the parking thing is exactly, everybody on the board by now knows how I feel about the parking. I don't know if I would consider it a waiver exactly, right? I mean, the code allows for
Right.
both pileup and for counting spaces in front of the building, right?
Yeah.
So is that still considered a waiver? I don't know if it's,
No, you could do it either way, Rob. You could give her credit for the on-street spaces adjoining the property, or you could go with a pileup.
because I feel like in addition to the way we all feel about whether there's enough or not enough parking, I think that there is a legitimate environmental issue here about, chopping that much more rock and what that means and so on. So I personally, I am interested, I would be interested in seeing Scheme B developed. But
No, I agree with you in all that, and I'm willing to consider that as well.
Yeah,
I think a pilot would be a good,
yeah, it'd be
there are
good.
2 spaces in front,
Yeah.
and you just need 1 pilot out of for 7 spaces. Is that correct?
And we have a whole lot of parking across the street.
right.
Yeah, but I also think like we have to think about long-term,
Yeah,
as far as parking, because, I mean, as years go by, obviously more people will be here and that parking lot may or may not be available. So, it's like right now, it's vacant in some ways, but I think in the future, we have to also consider what impact is this going to have on the
Understood.
community.
Although one of the great things about that site is we own it. So if we ultimately decide, the village ultimately decides to develop it, it's possible that the requirement for the development there would be not just whatever minimum amount of parking they require for their own
Right.
development, but whatever at that time we figure
Public
is an
parking, yeah.
additional parking
Right.
for the downtown or other
It could
developments
become
of
a parking
Palisades.
garage where there'd be
Yeah,
Yeah,
several
maybe.
levels.
I mean, we own it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we control it.
Okay.
yeah, people. This is a continuation of a public hearing, so I would just formality move that we open the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
No.
Could I address one technicality, Steve?
Yeah, please.
Could I ask Donna or Valerie, did the Board of Trustees change the exemption for the parapet height? Because currently in the code, I asked about it, I brought it up a while ago. So the code exempts from height the mechanical structure for the staircase and a 36 inches of a parapet wall. But state building code requires a usable roof to have a guardrail of 42 inches. So it's sort of, it doesn't make any sense. We should exempt the whole 42-inch parapet wall. I'm just wondering if we change that or we're going to have to add another 6-inch waiver onto this resolution.
I don't believe that was changed, but I can look right now. So just give me a minute.
And can you clarify? I'm not sure I'm following
So,
your
so
point.
in Scheme B, both in Scheme A and Scheme B, there's a parapet wall,
Above the roof level.
right, of 42 inches, which is building code compliant. But zoning code exempts a 36-inch parapet wall. So
Yeah.
the 6 inches, the other 6 inches that you need to be code compliant are not exempt in village zoning height.
But when I would argue, I guess what I would argue is you could, if the concern is having a railing of a legal height, you could have a parapet up to a certain height and a railing mounted
Yes,
above it,
yes,
right?
I've suggested that to applicants in the past, but it
Because-
sometimes doesn't look right. I think that the code should be changed because, we're setting a standard that's not safe as far as building codes. So
Wouldn't it be
our exemption should meet the state building codes.
Wouldn't it be different for a roof that's meant to be accessible to the residents versus, a parapet that's there just
If
for?
there was just mechanics up there, the 36 would be okay, but when you're accessing it for use, it needs to be 42.
And the code, and just for clarification, the code does say parapets with a height of 36 inches or less are not included in determining building height. So that has not been changed.
Right. Okay, so I think we should work on that. I don't know if
Mhm.
what you think, Donna, but I think we should change that. But for clarity, we would have to grant that other 6-inch exemption.
Right.
I mean, certainly if it's recommended by the planning board that we change the code, I'm sure the board would look at that.
Okay,
Okay.
We can.
a
we
voice
can-
from.
I can,
Disembodied voice coming.
Disembodied voices of authority. That's what I want to be. I should have zoomed in. It has a different aura.
I know that these elevations are just roughed out, but just remember to look at the guidelines for punched windows and
Right. I mean,
porches and, you know, all the details in the facade.
right. I mean, I think obviously you were very honest in saying this is kind of to get the massing and the general thing right. Except that I think the building does need a lot of work. So architecturally, I hope you agree. And the AHRB, of course, they'll, once we have something that we're okay with in terms of site plan and massing, they'll have something to say about the architecture.
Is anyone in the audience or online wish to comment at this point? Yes, please.
Hi, my name is Fred Kearns, 126 Palisade Street. My main concern actually is the size of the building as far as 2 and 3 bedroom, because to me, that sounds like a lot more vehicles on Palisade Street. What I saw of the entrance to the building with the parking underneath the building, is that correct? Excuse me.
Yes.
If the entrance is under the building, you're gonna have to make a left or a right turn off of Palisade Street to get into the building, the parking area. Right across the street is the village's parking lot with the entrance and exit in the same general area, very close, okay? Now, we all know, hopefully we all know, about the congestion that is on Palisade Street. I mean, it is totally out of control. I mean, between 145 Palisade Street with the amount of people that work there now and all that. But not only that, Metro North uses the property for a construction site. Another company, which I don't know who it is, uses the site also on the other side of the bridge that goes over the tracks. And they have been using it for at least 8 months. So there's been a heck of a lot of stuff going on there between trucks, deliveries, equipment, heavy equipment being moved in. And I see now there's construction going on right now as we speak. As I drove by to come to the meeting, the parking lot that Mercy College used to use, I see is getting filled up with dirt. They're dumping dirt in there. Now, where is that coming from? Because that seems to be another construction site. So now we have about 70, 75 vehicles, people that work there every day. There has to be at least 100 cars that come in and out all day. We also have all the food trucks that deliver to all the restaurants on Lower Main Street and the riverfront. Come back Palisade Street because they don't want to be bothered with the traffic lights and everything on Main and Chestnut Street. And the other thing is school bus stops. There are 3 school bus stops on Palisade Street. And that means 6 trips a day, 3 and 3, okay? And one of them happens to be about 30 feet from the construction site, right where the railing comes down from the sidewalk that was newly installed, which unfortunately caused another problem because of the railing coming down. You cannot cross Cedar Street to get to the other side. You have to go across Palisade Street and then go back across Cedar Street and then go back up the hill. So, I mean, there are things here. And also the entrance to the parking into this building is going to take away 2 spaces. Definitely taking away 2, and one of them is handicap space. And I think there's only 2 handicap spaces on Palisade Street, pretty big street. I just can't comprehend, you know, looking forward, what's going to happen? You're going to develop across the street next to our parking lot where Mercy College rented the property. He's waiting to develop that. He's waiting to develop the property on the other side of the bridge, of course. So, I mean, we're looking at a lot of problems that are coming up. And like I say, it's between the entrance to the building. I can't see, you know, having a driveway on a side and then trying to get back underground. I understand that, you know, it's crazy. But in order to have an entrance straight in off of Palisade Street, you're gonna have people coming down that hill, making a left-hand turn, people coming in and out of the parking lot. And now you're gonna have people trying to have access to the building. And like I said, 2 and 3 bedroom, you're gonna have more than 2 or 3 cars. And now we're taking a couple of parking spaces away. If you park across the street, you have to pay. Then automatic public parking, you have to pay. I don't know if anybody is aware of this. Palisade Street is the only place, I think, in the village that you have to pay to park on your own street. I don't understand it. Luckily, I have a driveway and I pull right in, 2 cars, I fit, okay? There's a couple of houses that are next to this. They have driveways, their slopes are like this. Their driveways go all the way up and they park 2 and 3 cars in their driveway. There are others naturally that don't. That's why there isn't any parking. So when you say there's on-street parking, there's not. You can go there now. I mean, you know, it might be a space or 2, but I doubt it. But, you know, people are home now. There's some space. Originally, this was all done because of the commuters. And you had to get a sticker and you had to pay. That was what it was, to get rid of the commuters from Ardsley and everywhere else that didn't want to pay to park at the riverfront. But now that seems to be taken care of. But nothing has changed as far as paying to park on your own street. So I don't know. It just, you know, it's a tough decision for you guys to make too.
For sure.
But yeah, I just want you to be aware of how many things go on Palisade Street. It's just, it's a nightmare. Every time I turn around, something else is either trying to be built or take this down. I mean, all those houses have been there for God knows. My house has been there for 150 years. So, you know, it's a shame to see them come down, but developers want them down so that they can erect something new. I understand it, but that's just my feelings.
Yeah.
And I thank you for your time.
No, thank
No,
you.
I hear you. I mean, the one thing it seems like is, I feel like ought to be able for the village to address in relatively short order is I feel like the business about, you know, on Walnut Street, which is, you know, I know that they changed the parking policy there so that you have to live on, you know, if you live on that street, you get a sticker and you can park there for as long as you want. So I think it's worth looking at the parking, whatever the policy is along Palisade Street in terms of who has to pay versus, you know, the idea that, you know, you get a resident sticker, and if you're a resident, you'd be allowed to park. If you're not a resident, you'd be time limited so that you couldn't go to work, you know, count on parking your car there and going to work for the day.
There are apartments on Palisade Street that do not have any parking whatsoever. So therefore they have to park.
Right.
And they get a resident permit, and that seems to work out because it was restricted to 4 hours. And needless to say, that wasn't working out too well either. People need to be there longer than 4 hours. And the only ones that it didn't was the people who worked in
Right.
the city,
Well-
which, you know, were gone more than 4 hours, so they couldn't park there. That was the idea of that situation, so that the local people, the Palisade Street residents, would have
Have
parking.
spaces,
Yeah, yeah.
right? I feel like that's something that
Yeah, they have.
ought
that
to be
in our state.
manageable, huh?
Upstairs has that.
No,
Yeah, I thought-
thank you.
I got it.
Yeah, when I walked, at the beginning of this process, when I walked down Palisades and I was just talking to people, they just were saying parking, parking, parking. You know?
Understand. Anyone else?
So I guess the village needs to build a parking lot there.
Wow.
Right. Another parking lot.
It's
That's
empty.
good.
I'm sure.
If there's no other comments from the board and the board is interested in going forward with scheme B, then I might suggest that the applicant provide more detailed engineering drawings, stormwater erosion sediment control, full site plans.
The elevations.
Yes, elevations for their next submission.
Okay, so we're in lockstep scheme B, we were proceeding.
Any other questions from the board? Comments? Good. Well, thank you.
Are you gonna adjourn this to a date certain, or are you gonna? Are you gonna adjourn the hearing tonight, or are you gonna just take it off the agenda and have them resubmit, and start from scratch? Because if you want to give them time, would you be able to make the submission deadline for the next meeting, or are you looking to be on down the road? Because if you can get an adjournment tonight, you won't have to renotice, start from scratch.
I think we'd like to submit in the next meeting in time. I think
Yeah.
we will be able to.
Yeah, have a continuation.
Yeah,
You'll
yeah.
have full submissions ready within a couple
We
weeks?
don't have an engineer. Oh, I see. I'm sorry. I don't know if the engineering drawings will be ready, so we might need another month.
Based on the 37 feet restriction, they need us to knock the house down before under that house.
So what about an adjournment till the November meeting?
Yeah,
But the public hearing
yes, let's
is
adjourn till November. We'll just
Public hearing remains open.
So the
You'll get an
public
engineer on
hearing would
board.
be adjourned to the November meeting.
Yes, as long as you adjourn to a date certain, then you're fine. And it
But
can
they don't
be-
have to they wouldn't have to
No,
No,
renotice.
if you adjourn it tonight. to
Okay.
the- And can you give the date of the November meeting?
The November meeting would be November 4th, the first Thursday.
It's up to the applicant.
Yeah, it's up to the applicant if they want to destroy the lives of their consultants or not.
right, so till October. We'll have plans.
Oh, okay. So
Because that submission deadline is next week, right?
Yeah, I believe.
If it's a continuation, don't we have until a week before the meeting? Or 10 days?
Don't ask me.
I assumed the submission deadline was for everybody. The submission deadline's next week, is you,
Submission deadline for continuations is extended. I believe it's 7 days prior to the meeting.
okay, so can you give us that date? Do you have your calendar?
For October.
Just so everybody's clear what your deadline's gonna be.
Right.
October.
October 7th. October 7th.
September 30th?
Oh, the date for the, yeah, so the
Right, because the next planning.
admission will be
Seventh.
September
Yeah.
30th.
So it would be,
September 30th, and the next planning board meeting would be the
October
7th
7th.
of October. So you want to take a motion to adjourn to October 7th, the public hearing, then you can.
Yes.
Yep.
So move. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
October 7th.
October
Thank you
7th.
very much for your time. See you next month.
Great.
Thank you very much. Next item on our agenda is 49 Clinton Avenue, finalized draft referral resolution for site plan approval for proposed new classroom building on the master's campus.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Brad Schwartz from Zarin and Steinmetz on behalf of Masters here tonight with Ed Biddle. The architects are on the call by Zoom. If you have any final questions about the drawings, otherwise we've just asked the board to adopt the resolution that's before you.
I think the less said, the better. I think it's up to us to make a motion and adopt them.
Have you closed the hearing?
Yes, the hearing was closed last month.
Yeah, we closed it last time.
See, I'm the player to be named later, so I don't have all that information.
We don't need to pick submission dates.
So, if I may. Whereas the master's school applicant is seeking site plan approval to construct a 3-story plus cellar, approximately 22,361 square foot innovation and enterprise center on its campus in front of the middle school building. The subject property is located at 49 Clinton Avenue, Dobbs Ferry, New York, section block gives that. The project site is located in the Educational Institutional Zoning District. And whereas this application requires site plan approval by the Village Board of Trustees and recommendation by the Planning Board per section 352 of the Zoning and Land Use Chapter. And whereas the Planning Board has carefully examined the application and the applicant's materials, and it lists a long list of things that we have reviewed with you. Whereas the Planning Board has also reviewed and examined letters and reports and memorandum from the board's consulting engineer and planner. And whereas the Planning Board conducted a duly noticed public hearing on July 1, 2021, at which time all those wishing to be heard were given the opportunity. And the public hearing remained open until August 5, 2021. And whereas the Planning Board deliberated in public on the applicant's request for recommendation. Now therefore be resolved that the Planning Board recommends the application for site plan approval with the following additional recommendations as set forth below. 1, the Village Board should require the applicant to address to the full satisfaction of the village engineer, all outstanding stormwater and engineering issues raised in the hearings and documents submitted to the board, including the September 7, 2021 engineering review letter.
You just need a motion.
Hmm?
There were no other recommendations.
There were no other recommendations. I was turning the page and
Yeah.
there's nothing else.
Yeah.
So I make the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Perfect. I therefore attest that the resolution was approved by the Planning Board at its September 9, 2021 meeting, and I've been authorized to sign the resolution by the decision of the Planning Board. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Good luck with your project.
And we'll see you at the
So-
Village Board of Trustees.
Yeah, right.
There is a date today.
Yes, you'll have to ask for, to be put back on the agenda for a presentation and to request a date for the public hearing.
So two meetings then? That's with the come for a presentation first and then ask for public hearing.
No, come to make the presentation, and they always ask for that second presentation just to be sure nothing on the plan has changed,
Yeah.
because the planning board's recommendations are sacrosanct, you know,
After that initial presentation, public hearing following.
the next meeting, yeah.
Exactly.
So on behalf of Masters, I would like to thank the board for your careful consideration of our application. And I'd also like to thank the public for their constructive comments. Thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
Good. Thanks.
Good luck with your project.
Yep.
All right.
It is.
Good.
Good luck with moving all those pipes and the wires and stuff.
Yeah, especially the steam.
Mhm.
I'm done on Masters.
You're Danforth now?
Item 4 on our agenda is 100 Danforth Avenue. Public hearing for proposed expansion of existing open terrace.
I'd say even less on this one, Mr. Chairman. There's another resolution before you, and we just asked for that for the resolution.
Yeah, I know. It's right here.
I believe this one has a public hearing though, open for.
Yeah, I know. All
Okay.
right. I move we open the public hearing.
Open, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Is there anyone that wishes to speak to this resolution? The proposal is to expand.
It's to create a patio of about 1,000 square feet next to the pool, next in the Danforth apartment building.
Aren't you expanding an existing patio
Existing patio there that would be expanded by about 1,000 square feet.
by a very small amount?
Yep.
Okay,
With some additional landscaping around.
okay. Is there anyone wishes to speak to this on the board or in the public? If not, I move we close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I have a resolution. This is the property at 100 Danforth Avenue. Whereas Lincoln Property Company is seeking site plan approval to undertake an addition to enlarge an existing open-air terrace by approximately 1,032 square feet. The subject property is located at 100 Danforth Avenue. The project site is located in the Chauncey Park zoning district, whereas this application requires site plan approval by the Village Board of Trustees and a recommendation by the planning board. Whereas the planning board has carefully examined the application materials and it lists what we've reviewed. The planning board has also reviewed and examined letters, reports, and memorandum from the board's consulting engineer and planner. Whereas the planning board conducted a duly noticed public hearing on September 9, 2021, at which time all those wishing to be heard were given an opportunity to be heard, and the public hearing was closed on September 9, 2021. And whereas the planning board deliberated in public on the applicant's request, now be it resolved, the planning board recommends the application for site plan approval with the following additional recommendations to set forth below. One, the village board should require the applicant to address to the full satisfaction of the village engineer all outstanding stormwater and engineering issues raised in the hearings and documents submitted to the board, including the September 7, 2021 engineering review letter. Okay. And I make the motion for approval. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good, approved. Thank you very much.
Terrific. And I thank you for everything on both projects. Appreciate it.
And it'll be the same procedure that we just discussed for the masters. You'll come back, make a quick presentation, ask for a resolution to set a hearing date, and no problem.
Okay.
Good night.
Next item on the agenda. Item number 5, 18 Fairlawn Avenue, public hearing for proposed new in-ground pool and raised spa. Is there anyone here to speak on this? Okay.
Never been to a meeting before, so.
Well, welcome.
On spas, usually there's a site visit after it's built, just want you to know.
We'll invite you all over.
It's
Pool party
just
at
a
our house.
tradition in Duxbury with the planning board. They usually make a site visit after the spa. Just like,
May get wild.
Is anybody from Hudson Engineering on the line by chance, or Shoreline? What are their names?
They kind of, we're not sure.
They kind of left us here.
There was some miscommunication tonight, and I think we might be the only ones here, so.
So we, or they had actually presented at the last planning board meeting about the proposal for the spa and the pool. There was one follow-up question about the drainage.
Yeah, there was some concerns with the existing drainage on the property. We attended the last one via Zoom and we're listening in. And that's what we were aware that there may be some questions there. We've hired the surveyor to come back that actually did the original when the house was built. When Doug Oshrin and the View of Dobbs had built the house, but they have not completed the work yet. All I was able to attain in the meantime was I actually still keep in touch with the people that built the house, not necessarily Doug and Leslie. That's a different relationship. But The actual workers who did the work, they came to the property and kind of mapped out for me what they did. I don't know if that qualifies for anything here or worth talking through. But I do have a very rudimentary sketch that I put in and to scale of what they said was actually in the ground for that draining piece. I believe Ed Manley on the last call had some questions around that. So I don't know if that helps, but we thought we would come here to be able to answer any questions or concerns that you had about the project.
I do have one person with their hand raised, so it might be one of the engineers. I just didn't want to interrupt you. I'm sorry.
So for the boards, this particular application's on for a public hearing tonight. We are still waiting for outstanding engineering responses to the engineer's comments as well as new engineering plans. So Anthony recommends that, he's not here tonight, but Anthony recommends that we keep this public hearing open until a new submission is provided by their engineers, specifically because he has some concerns with what is proposed and it might actually shift the site plan once they do the engineering analysis.
Okay. Is that-
Thomas, can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Yes. Are you one of the engineers?
Yes, I am actually from Hudson. And I'm more than happy to speak on, as he stated, there was miscommunication. I wasn't aware, but I have the plan in front of me and I'm more than happy to answer questions that I can.
Can you share your screen?
Did you open the hearing?
Open the public hearing? If I didn't, I'll move now.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I don't know.
So we have really engineering issues that are open. Is that what's going on here? And they need to be resolved?
Yes.
That's correct.
Yes, my
So-
understanding is most of the issues refer to the existing drainage on site. And as he stated, there's the surveyors picking up additional information. And once that happens, we can update our plan further.
So you're going to report back to Anthony Oliveri. So at the next meeting we should have, that hashed out between the engineers. So as Valerie said, I think we should probably continue this. I don't think there's any comments about the appearance, right?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
What are you saying?
So should we just continue this until the next meeting? So we have,
Motion to adjourn to, wait, is
I
there,
would take, if there's any public comment, we would
Right.
take that tonight.
if anybody
and
has
then
their
adjourn
hand
to
up,
next,
if
yes.
anybody in the audience wants to at least get it on the record since they're here.
I'm not sure we opened the public hearing.
We just did.
We just did.
Okay. Oh, I should we should open all public hearings at once.
So nobody's on the line,
Nobody's on.
correct?
Yeah. No one here has a comment or wants to speak on?
Okay.
No one.
Okay, and you understand that the engineers will talk after your surveyor has produced the existing drainage answers to the existing drainage. You want to take a motion to adjourn to October 7th?
Okay, so moved.
Second.
All in
Aye.
favor? Okay,
Thank you.
sorry.
Thank you for coming tonight.
Work on the engineers.
We'll have to delay the hot tub party.
Yeah. It's always best when it's snowing anyway.
Great. All right, thank you.
Have a good night.
Item number 6 on our agenda, 253 Judson Avenue. Public hearing for proposed demolition and replacement of single-family structure.
Good evening.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, good evening.
Hi there.
this a hearing?
Is this a public hearing?
Yes.
Yes.
Want to open, take a motion to open?
Mine's well, yeah. I move that we open the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
I just, I see it here. I don't see it on the screen.
Oh. Hmm.
Works. Oh, you want to know why? It's because when you try and do a presentation, for some reason,
When you put it on full screen.
yeah, it doesn't open. So if you could just, like,
Just like go through it.
yeah, if that's okay.
Sure.
I think this is exactly what we did last time too. Now I'm remembering it as you're walking us through the troubleshooting.
Where was that?
No.
You want to just give your names and affiliations for the record?
Sure, we will. Just reintroduce the project. My name is Shamita Basu. This is my husband, Michael Marfione. And we're going to reintroduce for you our plans for 253 Judson Avenue. Just briefly on us, part of the reason why we chose Judson and part of the reason why we loved this lot is because of how lush and green and nature filled that end of Judson Avenue is. It's such a beautiful dead end of the street. It abuts the park there. And one of the reasons that we really fell in love with it was the fact that the backyard was just so private and so nature filled. We also really appreciated that the previous owner was a bit of a green thumb himself and clearly cared about the landscaping of his yard. The front yard is very wild and lush, and another thing that we really loved about it. So we're doing our best in our design to maintain as much as we can of what's there and commit to planting as much as we can as well to beautify that lot once we move in. So that's the basic concept for Judson and why we loved it. Part of the reason why we are demolishing the existing house was once we had an inspection done, there was serious structural damage found. Termite damage, things that were going to be just too costly and too difficult to fix and renovate, which we did consider doing and ran through a cost analysis. It turned out it was just going to be too big of a job to do it that way. So that's how we ended up designing our home, which has been such an exciting privilege. A bit about us, I'm a journalist, I'm a broadcast journalist. My husband is a visual artist. And you'll notice in our plans, we've designed this home to be responsive to our needs. There's a huge studio space for Michael. One thing that we really disliked when we were living in Brooklyn is he always had to leave the house and go rent a studio space elsewhere. So that's something that's very personal to us. There's also a home office space for me as I've been working and broadcasting from my home during the entirety of the pandemic. So we'll turn now to the plans and we hope to address any questions you have.
So we've hired Matt Evans from Evans Architect, Hudson Engineering, and Susan Jane Chill for our landscape artist. Yeah, if Matt is in the room, raise your hand. Right.
Thank you.
No problem.
I don't see him on here. Oh yeah, Matthew just joined. That was perfect timing. That was like magic.
I could.
What is coming on?
I don't know. Can we see Matt at the same time that I have the presentation up?
He could
speak, you won't see him.
Yeah, you probably won't see him.
Okay.
He might pop up in the corner.
All right, I think I think we go ahead, right? We'll just, Matt, you're here in spirit. I'll take over until we.
His audio is turning on right now. That's why.
Okay.
You might be able to
Okay.
join.
Matthew, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so Matt, you want to take it over and I could be Vanna White for you?
Okay, so you have the architectural plans. Can you just show us? So there's the context of the neighborhood. We have different houses specified. So you have the different addresses, all different types of architectural styles, all residential in nature.
I'm,
So those are the neighboring types of architecture styles in the neighborhood. Then going to the next one, we have our, we have a architectural rendering we created, which would be the building as seen from the street where the existing driveway is. And we have the landscaping with existing and proposed, showing the scale and density, the massing of the house, the materials as seen from the street. We have the basement plan, the architectural elevations, the front, rear, side, at both sides. We have the floor plan, that's the first floor plan, 2-car garage. And we have the media room, we have the studio, we have the courtyard, and we have the living room, dining room, kitchen and breakfast room, along with the mud room and powder room, which is adjacent to the garage. The next one would be the second floor plan, which doesn't occupy as much space as the first floor plan because there's roof areas and different architectural elements which break up the facade, give it more an aesthetic appeal. And we have laundry room, shared bathroom, and then we have 3 bedrooms with an office. And one of those, the rear one would be the master bedroom with the master bath. So we have the sky plane calculations showing that the building conforms with the sky plane and the according with the ordinance. So we have a lot of space, as you can see from the sky plane calculations, where the building was within that.
Thanks, Matt.
Okay.
Thomas from Hudson Engineering, if you could chime in at this point.
Thomas, can you hear us?
Yes, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Hello again, I'm Thomas from Hudson Engineering. Can you jump to the next slide, please? So more or less, it's a pretty straightforward site plan. If you go to the next slide, as far as engineering, all the comments from Mr. Oliveri were addressed. All the stormwater for the site is stored on site for up to the 100-year storm from all impervious areas. There's a small section of the driveway where it goes right out to the road. It's just due to elevations, it wasn't feasible to collect. But for the most part, everything is collected on site, stored on site, and will not be released. In the existing conditions, all the paved areas, the house, all was released to grade and added to the drainage problems of the village.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Susan Janesville of Aspect 120 Landscape Architecture. And just talking through the landscape design, we really stuck to the area of disturbance and looked to replace a lot of the landscaping that would be taken away because of the disturbance, using all, if not exclusively native, then almost all native and all non-invasive and appropriate for the climate. Also putting 2 large oak trees in the back of the house, recognizing that canopy trees are important and putting them there where it will not be endangering the house in the long term, but will be giving shade to the site. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot we could talk about in terms of landscape on the existing site. It's really, as Shamita just said, it's really a lushly, very, you could see the care that was given to planting of the site's landscape. But that said, as you might know from the past 30 years of landscaping, it's not the same as the last 5 years or 10 years of landscaping. A lot of invasive species were planted, and only things that survived the deer. So there's a lot of improvement that can be done, beyond what's being done right now. And that is definitely the next step. As I spoke to Michael and Shmita, they really do want to move forward and do a really smart landscaping with native species, looking at things that are appropriate for the climate, deer tolerant as much as possible. Of course, nothing is deer proof, but really looking forward, there's a lot that's going to be done beyond this. Thanks.
Thank you. That's the existing photograph of the lot.
Thanks. We got several letters about the trees, about taking down the big trees. And it looks like on your plan, I see that the 30-inch pine is right where you have your water control over here.
It's a 40-inch oak.
But there's a 40-inch oak, and actually in your elevation, in your facade elevation, you had a bunch of trees illustrated that would actually be taken out, I think. So I think there's one of the biggest concerns that your neighbors have is the removal of some of these big trees. And it's nice to hear that you're going to put in a couple of big oaks in the back, but there's this 30-inch ash in the back somebody mentioned was actually a hickory. So do you want to talk about
I
that?
can't say that I'm really sure if it's an ash or hickory. I have to go back there and check it. But when I was there last time, I thought it was an ash, not an arborist. But a lot of the survey has trees that are specified on it. And when surveyors put pine tree, it means that it's evergreen. That's what a surveyor means by pine. And oak could be an oak or a maple, but this is definitely, an oak tree, the large oak tree. But yeah, that is questionable. And if we can save that tree, if it turns out to be hickory, I'm pretty sure it's not a shagbark hickory as the letter had
The
said.
hickory nuts on it this time of year.
Hmm?
They would have hickory nuts.
Right,
on it.
I just haven't been to the site recently, but I definitely will check that, and we could try to see if we could save that one.
Yeah,
But
the 40-inch oak.
the 40-inch oak is really in a place that, based on the plan, I don't think that we can save it. Based on
It looked like it was in the clear there, the 36.
it looks like it's around 8 to 10 feet away from the house, but I think that building a foundation there is going to disrupt the root subgrade, and being that large of a tree, it's really won't survive disruption of the roots. So that was the thinking there.
I don't know what, I mean, I guess I'm just urging you to take a look at it again, because that's what most of our comments.
Right. No, we did read the letters and we recognize that, really I think one thing to really notice, in that rendering, like you said, that it seemed that the trees that were taken down were there. I don't believe that they were. I mean, I didn't study it, but there are a lot of trees on the site beyond what's being taken down. As you can see, this is a photograph. This isn't a rendering here. This is the existing site. So when you drive by, currently, you hardly see the house at all. You will see it a little bit more, because it is going to be a little bit more forward than the existing house, but it is really a lush site with a lot of greenery, and it's going to, get better in the future.
Yeah. The other comments we got was about the water, the stream going through there, right?
Right.
That's right.
You're the expert talking about that.
I just, I haven't talked to my neighbors this week, but that stream has flooded many of them in the past. I'm sure they're not happy with it.
I think the engineer could talk to that a little bit. I think what he had just said is that really now there is no management of the stormwater on the site. So all the stormwater on the hard surface as well as on the house goes right down into, that open ditch that overflows sometimes, like when you have a, 100, 500, whatever year storm we just had, it's everything flooded. But I think what our engineer, what Thomas just said is that everything, all the hard surfaces, the stormwater is being captured and stored subgrade on site with the Coltech. So that hopefully will be a little bit better than it is now.
I mean, is there a possibility of a water feature, of a rain garden or something that would, actually be nice landscape and control the?
There definitely is that potential. I mean, the whole front yard is pretty much a rain garden. And really the vegetation that's near the stream right now is not what you want to see near the stream. Hopefully what we're going to do is put in appropriate vegetation, put in winterberry and red twig dogwood and things that we know deer sort of shy away from a little bit and are appropriate for the climate and really will improve the conditions of the waterways here.
I can give you a nice willow tree if you want.
A willow tree, that would be lovely too.
It'll suck up the water.
Right. So I mean, a rain garden would be wonderful as well. And I think in the next steps. But right now, all the water is actually just being captured subsurface. So it's fulfilling that need for the village. Of course, surface treatment is, the best for the environment, of course. But it's getting taken care of at least.
So you do have 3 letters. You just want to enter those into the record. One is a September 6th. From the neighbor at 240 Judson Avenue. The other one is dated September 7th from the neighbors at 247 Judson Avenue. And you've indicated you received these.
Yes.
And then the third one is a letter, which I keep, it's actually in Word, dated September 8th from the neighbors at 257 Judson Avenue. So they're entered into the record.
Should we acknowledge those, officially acknowledge them?
That's why I brought it up.
Mr. Chairman, could I take this time to speak to zoning?
Sure.
I missed what he said.
He wants to speak to zoning. Ed Manley can speak about whatever he wants.
Yeah, yes, you may.
So this lot is almost 19,000 square feet, so it falls into table B3, the sliding scale for coverages. And the coverage by building should be 16.5. I think it's 1/10 over at 16.6. The coverage by impervious should be 30%, and I believe it's 9.7% over. So those should be addressed, or you can address them to them. And the height, though, I'm not sure if it complies because on the plan it's not noted properly. So the height on the elevation or end section should be from grade plane to ridge, a maximum 35 feet. You're giving me existing plane, existing grade to midpoint. So that was changed in the new code. So please change that on your plan, and also please show the height to the eave. And
What? Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, the architect's supposed to take notes on that, right? Because I kind of understood that, but someone's taking notes, right?
The, well, first of all, I have to out myself as a future neighbor. I'm looking, so you have to take that. So I'm not commenting. I'm commenting as somebody who lives a couple of houses away. I actually don't see, as it happens, because of the topography and landscaping, I don't actually see the existing house. I don't know if I'm going to see this house. So a couple things. One is there is part of the code includes a set of residential design guidelines. It's a separate booklet in the appendix. Do you know if your architect has had a chance to review those? Yes. And the other thing is, and this is something that we do pretty typically. If you were here at the beginning of the meeting, you saw the project Palisade Street. Is that, you know, the context, like whether the idea that the house should fit into the large, you know, the context of the neighborhood is really important. And I want to say that I don't think it's fair to show, I think the houses that really need to dominate that presentation, photo presentation, are the houses that are from Beachdale down to the end of Judson. There are a lot of houses on Judson, some of them are huge, some of them are probably bigger than this, but that's not the character of Judson from the intersection down to the street, which is mostly small houses. I mean, I would suggest that this house is an order of magnitude bigger than any other house between Judson and the woods. That doesn't mean the house necessarily has to get smaller in terms of its absolute square footage and coverage, although you have to conform to all of the things that Ed was just talking about. But in terms of its apparent mass and in terms of its apparent scale, it has to be designed in a way that looks like it's not overwhelming its neighbors. So one thing that we typically require, and I'm going to suggest it should be done here, is that the architect draw a continuous elevation of both sides of the street, showing all of the existing houses and your house placed in it, and to do the same on the other side of the street. That's not a special consideration for you. That's something we do with every applicant. Because I guess and of course the AHRB will have something to say about maybe more of the specifics of the architecture, but this house is an order of magnitude bigger than its neighbors. And for that reason, there needs to be a lot of special attention given to the way it's massed and the way it's sited.
Can because we thought about this a lot when we started this process back in December, where we went through plans, and a lot of these concerns were my concerns, especially, you know, even though it's a private lot, we were thinking about the public and private part of the house. That's why we didn't, first we had this like kind of a square kind of box that you just kind of draw like a Mickey Mouse house, and it didn't work out because of all of the massing that was in the front. And we decided to do one story on either side where the garage is and where the media center is, and kind of recess the back on the 2-story. That was our thinking. We'll talk with the AHRB about how that plays out. But that was just something that was going through our thought process when we're thinking about design.
One thing that also is very helpful, but you'll have to ask your architect about it, is to have some kind of 3-dimensional mass, something that gives them, because I think that your argument would be supported by a 3-dimensional massing diagram of some kind that would show that you're bringing these lower pieces to the front and pushing the larger volume back. But
Yeah, I think so, because
it's hard to tell.
just the elevation makes it all look huge, but actually the second floor is much smaller.
Yes. Yeah. So we do have a study, kind of Revit model that was done recently. We could show you guys that. Not here with me tonight, though.
And the other thing I would say, just to go back to the landscape question again. Well, first of all, there's a question that I don't know the answer to, which is whether or not, what are the constraints around building next to a stream? I know that streams have different classifications, and I don't know what you're legally allowed or not allowed to do. But I do think that the question, if to some extent, the idea is for the house to respond to the landscape, not the other way around. So when you say, well, that big tree, you know, when the answer to the question about the big tree is, well, it wouldn't survive because of where we're putting the foundation, you know, my answer would be, well, then maybe the foundation needs to be someplace else, not the tree removed. So I think, and I'm going to suggest that the board, I do think that the existing landscaping there is kind of crazy and kooky and interesting in a way, and the site has a lot of interesting things going on, and I think it would be worthwhile at the end of this discussion for the board to walk the site and to get a sense of what's there in terms of the landscaping and the topography.
Fair enough.
I agree. Chairman, I just wanted to let you know, Ayer from the AHRB is on the meeting and he would like to make some comments if that's okay with you.
Yeah.
It's okay to speak now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Hey, hi, everyone.
Hi.
Hi, Michael. Hi, Shamita.
Hello.
Good to see you again. Just to brief you, we had a review with of the house in the last meeting, and also we had a walkthrough with Deepti and I at the site, and my main concern was the apparent massing. For some reason, the representation of the plans, it doesn't convey properly how is the house put together. That's why we also recommending a 3D modeling of the house to understand the massing and to understand. But besides that, the main issue was how the massing is perceived from the street, how the massing relates to the context. And I would like to put that on the planning board, that whenever we get to review or to discuss the detailing, the design strategies, or the cohesive design approach to the house, fenestration, clarification of materials, we already have a house that is already reviewed by you and approved in terms of code, or incorporating all the comments that Ed Manley made, and final location, etc., etc. So I think a lot of things need to happen before it gets back to us, because anything that is going to be decided at your level is going to affect the house, you know, the architecture of the house. So that said, I'm in line with the comments that I'm concerned that was brought overall, and and also I'm going to say it again, that this is a great scope. I hope, it's clearly a house that is coming with a great commitment from the clients. They really enjoy the process of design, and I hope it will be a good asset to the street. But that's basically my comments.
Thank you, Ayer.
Is there anyone else? Anyone else with their hands up?
No, no one else has their hands
Okay.
raised.
Is there anyone here that would like to speak to this?
Oh, I'm sure there are.
Good evening. My name is Dawn Gayer.
You have to speak into the microphone.
My name is Dawn Gayer. I live at 247 Judson Avenue, which is the property just south, adjoining just south. I thank you very much for having reviewed the letters, and I think you have brought up some of the issues that we had mentioned and our neighbors had mentioned. Some of what I wrote was about those issues, so it may be a little bit repetitive unless I can kind of leave some of that out. But we have a number of concerns. We feel that the plan as it stands does change the character of the neighborhood a great deal. As you mentioned, the photos that were shown as comparative contextual photographs are really of a larger portion of the neighborhood than our little dead end. And our dead end is beautiful, and the homes are a little bit smaller than others on Judson Avenue. And given that this is a very large home, we're concerned about the issue of taking down large trees. And I think not just the large trees, and maybe some of the other trees will be replaced. But based on what I'm seeing, living next door, I can tell you that basically all of the trees on the property are being removed because they're in the way of a building or a walkway. And there are quite a few walkways, some of which extend to the edge of I call it a stream, but there's a downgrade to the stream that runs through the property. And one of my concerns is that the removal of all those large trees is going to affect, you no longer have the root systems absorbing water. Somehow there may be an effect on the water running through that stream. And I think someone mentioned that the stream floods properties, and it does flood our property during extreme water rain events. And we have a river running through our property because the stream goes underground when it crosses the property line, but the pipe is not really capable of bringing that much water at once underground. So I want to be sure that the removal of the large trees is not going to cause more water to be draining into our yard, and that we don't have a river running through our yard even when the rain is not that severe. I think that also the driveway being shifted and requiring a retaining wall is something that I'd like to know more about, because this retaining wall, there's no detail at all about the proposed retaining wall, what materials it would be, or exactly where it would be constructed. I know there was some additional comment made in a memo about if the retaining wall needed to be more than 5 feet, a licensed engineer would design it and would have to have it approved. I don't see where it indicates, where the retaining wall is going to be. So I don't know how anyone can determine whether it needs to be 5 feet or more. But I'm also concerned about the change in the landscape, putting a retaining wall there, and how that might affect water runoff into the stream as well. I'd like to know also if there are any rules that exist regarding a waterway such as this one, including limitations on building nearby, changes in the landscape, environmental reporting requirements, and approvals by affected governments, considering the fact that it does eventually runs into hillside woods. And so I don't know whether that is an issue, or whether building a walkway right up to the edge of the downgrade into the stream is an issue, but I'd be interested to know that. The placement of the swimming pool in the backyard is a little bit unfortunate, in my opinion. It's just about as close as it could be to our property line. And right where we enjoy our backyard. Its mechanical equipment is even closer. And I think that having a pool right there is going to significantly impact our ability to enjoy our property. I would love it if the swimming pool could be moved farther away, so that we would not have to hear the noise coming from the pool and the equipment. as you mentioned, the context-based requirements are important to us. Comparing them to the houses within 200 feet as opposed to the entire street. And I'm very concerned about the concept of rock ledge, because rock ledge does exist in the area. It exists above ground in my next door neighbor's yard, and it exists at the top of our street where I think it's 80 Beachdale has been under construction for the last, I was saying 10, but it may be 15 years. We have a rock that juts into our basement. I think that it's very possible that rock could be encountered in the excavation process. I don't think that's been addressed anywhere. I think it should be. And I would not want to have to live through, I wouldn't want the request for rock blasting, but I also wouldn't want to live through the kind of rock chipping that has been going on or had been going on until it was abandoned at 80 Beachdale. And I also feel that there is the need for some construction logistics relating to vehicles accessing the dead end. It is a dead end. There's no other way to get out. If you're stuck in there, that's it. Emergency vehicles can't get down there. We already have people walking their dogs, parking on the street at the dead end. There are going to be cars parked there. Trucks try to turn around in driveways. It doesn't work. They drive over lawns. We'd like to see some sort of logistics plan, site safety plan, showing how the delivery vehicles and construction vehicles will access, turn around, and exit the site. I think that might be all I wanted to say, but I think that it's a great idea to visit the site, to take a look at the natural topography, and to try to envision the house and what you call the massing of it, compared with the landscape and the house that's there now. I'm not an architect and I don't know anything about drawing plans and photoshopping homes into existing land. But when I look at that photoshopped photo, to me, it does not look accurate. To me, it looks as if the house is not to scale. I don't know if that's correct or not, but that's the way it looks to me. So I thank you very much for your time and consideration. And I don't know if anybody else.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much.
My name is Alan Vianney. I live directly across the street from the site. I was formerly a member of the tree commission. And when I joined the tree commission many years, several years ago, the tree law had been in effect for 15 years. And apparently, of all the applications that were submitted in 15 years, not one tree was disapproved for being removed until I got on the commission. What I'm trying to say is that we have to be serious about our tree law and our environment. What's going on, trees are like one of the most indispensable defenses against climate change and heat, rising temperatures and so forth, and retaining the character of our soils and so forth. But my concern with the site, well, I haven't done a thorough study of it, but as I look at it, there's an oak tree, for example, on the left side, facing the house from the street. There's an oak tree on the left side. And it appears that that tree is coming down because somebody wants to build a patio there. Well, I have a patio in my backyard, and guess what? The patio is built around the tree because the people who built that house wanted to save that tree, and they put the patio around the tree, and that's fine. The tree is there. It's a hickory tree, as a matter of fact. In the front of my house, I have a 125-year-old oak tree that's 15 feet from my house. It hasn't done anything to my basement. The area is full of ledge, just full of ledge. And I have several large oak trees in the back of my house. As a matter of fact, I've been on that site I'm an admitted tree lover, obviously. I've been on that site since 1990, and I haven't had to cut down a single tree. I have about 34 trees on the property. So I'm just saying that there has to be more consideration given to the preservation of the major trees on the property. There's a large pine tree, which I believe is a white pine tree in front. That's also not on the building on the footprint of the building. And I think those large trees should be preserved. There's no good, valid reason to cut them down, except to build a patio or a walkway or whatever. I don't know. But those things should be preserved. Other than that, I haven't really examined the building codes and the height and all of that stuff. As long as compliant, I don't have an objection to that, but I am concerned about the site itself and the retention of trees on the property.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are there others that wish to comment this evening? Yes, please.
Good evening. I'm Donald Ball, 205 Judson Avenue. I'd just like to start out by saying, Shamita and Michael, you're going to be our neighbors. And we want to be sensitive to your desires for developing the property, but it's a two-way street. And I think you need to embrace some of the concerns that the people have voiced here this evening. To begin with, the reference homes that were shown on the screen were almost exclusively from Upper Judson Avenue. And they are typically homes of a much more grandiose scale. The character of the neighborhood changes abruptly once you cross Beachdale and head down the dead end Judson Avenue. You stated you were drawn to the area because of the charm, the greenery, the vegetation, and it is not enhanced by putting a home that dwarfs the others. The homes on Lower Judson Avenue are typically modest homes averaging maybe 2,000 square feet. Your proposed building is supposed to double that. I don't think it's reflective of the character of the neighborhood. And it would have an
Excuse me.
impact on
Can you
other
speak to
people's.
us, please?
Yeah, it would have an impact on other people's relative appearance and possibly even their real estate values. I would not like to see Lower Judson Avenue turned into a checkerboard of McMansions. I don't believe that, well, you had said that the kickoff for wanting to destroy your existing dwelling was a termite situation. I don't know if there is any possible remediation that may be enacted to temper that and possibly save some of the existing structure. One person's termite report is not a fait accompli, giving a green light to tear down a home entirely and build something twice as large. Perhaps some remediation can be done, expansions, whatever. I just wanted to be open to the fact that this is a huge, huge variant from the existing homes in the neighborhood, and it is a major concern to many of the people in the neighborhood. So just please keep that in mind. We're also concerned about the vegetation. We've got at least 3 over 100-year large growth vegetations, which need to be removed according to their plan. They are not going to be replaced by dropping in 2 oak trees. They would have to have a sky crane drop in 2 trees that would even begin to get close to the size of the trees that are proposed for removal. So the vegetation, the visual impact on the neighborhood, the scale of the artist's rendition. I looked at the artist's rendition when we're down on the Sawmill Parkway, when that 20 Square was built. The artist's rendition made the hotel look like it was 2 or 3 football fields away. We all know the reality of it, and it's just distortion that can be made from an artist's rendition, photoshopping, whatever. Please visit the site, look at the adjoining homes, and really embrace the character of the neighborhood and the potential impact of a home of this size may have on the existing dwellings. Thank you.
Will do. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, please. No.
We get the drawing back up. I can get the drawing back.
If you need me, I'll get a job.
When we go to the same meeting.
So I just want to point out two things while we're analyzing the plan and of course the vegetation. One thing is the setback line for the front of the house. The plan is not showing it pushed all the way towards the street. So there is, consideration given there that it's pushed back a little bit. So it's not taking advantage of eating into the lush vegetation that's in front there. It's really thought about that. And the other thing I wanted to point out is there is this very large oak that we made a major effort. It's hard to get this cursor where it's supposed to go. You see the oak right there next to the driveway. That was, we made a big effort to make sure that the driveway would not disturb that oak and keeping it as far away as possible. We're actually keeping the driveway in that area to the same extent that the existing driveway is there, just so we know we won't hurt that tree. So there definitely was consideration. I mean, we could have taken that out and given it back, but we thought about that in the earlier part of the design. So just want to point that out.
Good, thank you.
Thank you. I guess I have a question about is there any, there's a mention of rock ledge. Is there any demolition as far as jackhammering, or how would the construction of the new home impact the rock ledge and the transition of vibration into possibly other people's homes? Is there,
Yeah, Tom, if you could speak to that.
Sure.
I'm sure that's an engineering thing.
Yes, so we did do some preliminary testing for when we did our stormwater system, our stormwater design. We did tests in the rear yard and one in the front. We did not encounter any ledge rock. Now, that's not a guarantee that there's not ledge rock on the site, but in spots we got 8 feet, we got over 6 feet where there were no ledge rock. As far as when they go to dig the foundation, it is possible that there are pockets of ledge rock elsewhere on the site. We did relatively minor testing. But
And if there is rock ledge there, how would you handle the demolition of that to put in a foundation? What type of how would you propose to demo the rock to be able to put in the foundation or accommodate the foundation? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I don't know if that's for us to discuss.
Well, the reason why I ask is because of the concern of it transferring to another person's property. And I actually used to live on Briary, and my neighbor jackhammered their rock ledge, which were all on rock ledge, and they cracked my foundation wall.
No, I agree. I'm not saying it isn't a concern. I don't know that we have
So
the,
we don't have
I don't
that
know that we have the expertise here.
to be able to make
I think
that.
it should be noted as a concern, and there should
They
be
need
some
to
kind of site
Do
safety.
some other
or-
test holes. See if
I'm just curious. That's all. I'm sorry.
No, don't apologize. It's legitimate.
I can also follow up with Anthony and have him prepared to speak to that issue next month, so.
Right.
That seems like a good way forward.
Okay, thank you.
If they have to chip, we could require that company to do a survey of the surrounding properties, existing conditions of their foundations, and then a closeout survey of conditions after it's completed.
Okay, thank you.
I imagine there'd be ways to work around the ledge too, incorporate it into the basement without destroying it.
Right, I'm just a concern.
I know lots of people who have sort of
As a part of
rock
the-
jetting
That
into
would
their
be me.
basement.
As a part of the building permit process too, construction sequencing and also approvals for that kind of impacts, construction impacts would be all taken into consideration. So,
But as a resident of Judson Avenue, I can tell you, we've had months of chipping going on in our neighborhood. So it's a valid concern.
okay.
Well, that's just that one, that's just the unfinished property at the corner. I mean, some of the other buildings have, gone through the same process.
And also, that taking into consideration and making it a condition that the impacts would need to be reviewed in terms of what kinds of vibrations and things would impact the structures, the nearby structures. And you've done that in the past. I know when 41 Cedar was here, you included particular conversations about the impact of the church. And so, there are ways to get around that, but you would benefit from providing instructions exactly what you need next time. And then if there's no one else to speak, you can adjourn it to your October meeting. If they're not, if they won't meet the submission deadline, you can take more comments and then adjourn it again. So you have that option.
I think the key for us tonight is to plan a site visit. I think, we've heard from everybody, and I don't want to cut it off, but I don't think it gets repetitive after a while. But I think it'd be very helpful.
Sure.
I think some of the people on the board live nearby. I've driven down there for years and know people that have lived on every side of you. So I know the area, but I think you look at it differently when you're looking at it for a purpose. So,
Do we need to have an organized site meeting, or can we just go on our own, you think?
well, I think it might be helpful to go together if we could.
And one thing that I'd ask you to do, which again, it's a thing that we typically do, is to have your surveyor stake out the major corners of the house on the property. You might find it, by the way, you may find this is actually a very useful exercise for yourself, to stake out the major corners of the house and based on the neighbor's comment, maybe where the pool is. Because that makes that's just usually helpful to actually visualize where the building is going to be. Sure. It's going to be sitting.
If we do schedule one, we have to get it publicized so that we have to have some lead time. So I don't have a calendar, but
There's 25th, there's next weekend.
next,
there's
we
a
don't have
weekend.
time to get in.
So the 25th and 26th is a weekend in September. And then October.
25th works for me.
25th.
26th works for me.
Anything works for me.
Both those days work for me.
25th is fine.
25th
Should we
is
do the 25th?
Yeah.
Saturday, you have problems with Saturday.
Yeah, she
Oh,
preferred
okay.
the 26th.
What about the 20? I could do the 26th also. That's
26 is okay with me.
26th.
actually,
Like 9?
Sure.
if it's in the morning.
Yeah.
you know, That's for me also. I have something that afternoon. but in
9
the
o'clock
morning
on the
I do.
26th,
26.
Sunday. Sounds good.
Sunday, the 26th at
9 o'clock on.
9
on the
o'clock.
26th.
9 o'clock on the 26th.
Sunday, the 26th at 9 o'clock.
Don't be discouraged.
Yeah, does that work for you?
It's
The
gonna be okay.
26th.
Sunday.
Sunday, the
Make it work.
26th at 9 a.m.
This will work out. Don't be discouraged.
That's the soonest. What does that mean regarding the next meeting for us?
They'll adjourn the hearing until the next.
Yeah.
if you take a motion to adjourn tonight, you'll adjourn it to your next planning board meeting. And in the meantime, they'll have made this site visit.
Yeah,
And they'll be able to enter onto the record what they observed, what they thought, their feelings of.
Do we need to like resubmit for that, for the next meeting?
Well, you've been asked, your architect's been, yeah, your architect's been asked to do the massing.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Yeah, and you know, it
There's
would
some
benefit
changes,
you
yeah.
to do, as Rob has, you know,
The same that Christina
the
Griffin
street
did on
facade,
her.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah, exactly.
Okay, I got it.
And also take
And the
another
3D
look at the,
diagram.
just reassess the trees again to see if you can.
Yeah, we're gonna take a,
Right,
hard
if
look at
there
that.
are, if based upon comments tonight, if there are any changes you would automatically like to propose, then yes, resubmit again.
And Ed brought up something. He said you're way over the permeable surface zoning.
Yeah, I was surprised by that,
So
actually.
that should be at least be revisited. I mean, there are permeable solutions for some of, you know, like patios and driveways and stuff that you could look
Sure.
at to address that, but it should be looked
Yeah,
at.
I was
and-
actually
and-
surprised by all the.
Yeah, I didn't
So-
before, I know that Thomas catch that also.
We'll send the new code, excuse me, not the code, the new.
Oh, is there a new
changes to
code?
There's new changes to the zoning code, not.
Since we did this like in February,
Yes,
you know, maybe
there
that's
has been-
changed.
Yes, there has been changes. So I'll send those over to the architect.
He said, Ed, was that right? The building coverage is over 16.5 and the
No,
site is
no.
over,
The impervious is over 1850 square feet,
okay.
1,850 square feet, and the building is over 190 square feet.
Okay, okay.
And to answer one of the neighbors who spoke before about the pool equipment. So the accessory structures are allowed to be only 5 feet away from the property line, but for mechanical equipment, there is also a maximum 65 decibels at the property line. So, you know, her concerns about hearing the pool equipment can be stemmed if once it's installed, we go out there with a sound meter and we find it's over the decibel limit, they would have to put in a sound attenuating device, fence or something like that to deaden that.
Yeah, if we have to move the mechanical equipment, we'll just move the mechanical equipment.
Yeah, sometimes in the specs, they'll tell you how loud they are at, usually like 15 feet, but you're 5 feet away. So you need to know that. Or you might be able to use, like I said, deafening. They make special fences with sound deafening.
Sound
material.
attenuation.
Or put them in a shed.
Yeah.
Makes them last longer and quiets them down.
Or we probably have to stand before you and get a permit for a shed.
On the site plan.
Sadly, that's probably true.
Okay. Thank you for your time.
Yeah,
Thank
don't be
you.
discouraged. It's gonna be okay.
So we need to pick a time, pick a date. We did that.
Yeah.
Yes,
9
Sunday,
o'clock,
9 o'clock on the
26th.
26th.
Which
Yeah.
you need to publish.
I guess my only changes, I'm not trying to throw a monkey wrench into that, but just in deference to the applicant, if we can do it, if there's a sooner date, then they would have more time to try to fold in whatever.
We got it.
That would be great.
Exactly,
need to
you have to
publish a
notice it.
notice.
So that means the earliest we can have it is
Yeah.
when.
And you shouldn't be conducting business in the field. You should be observing and taking information in. And then at the hearing, you can provide some more observations.
Okay,
Okay.
and we do have a date,
Yeah,
Sunday, the
26th.
26th.
Yeah, I'm not around on the 18th, 19th, but you guys could go
Okay.
if it's earlier.
Okay, so we adjourn the public hearing until next month. Is that our next step?
Just
We
take a
adjourn.
motion to adjourn the public hearing until I'm doing it again, the
October
6th,
7th.
October 7th.
October 7th.
You can
Okay.
adjourn it to the 6th, but no one will be here. I might be.
I think I heard a motion down there.
Second?
Aye.
Thank you, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman. I'm
Thank you.
sorry.
2:43.
Okay,
Can somebody talk to, we need to get noticed in the paper.
I'll set it up.
Okay, good. Thank you. Okay, next one on the agenda. Oh my God, we're,
243.
yeah. Item number 7, 243 Judson Avenue, public hearing for proposed additions to an existing house.
We have an applicant?
Yes, on Zoom.
Oh, great. Isn't this just next door?
Yes.
Okay. I'm on Google Earth and I'm like, wait a minute, this looks familiar.
Matthew, can you hear us?
Hi, it's Laurel Gaffney, actually,
Oh.
from from Matthew's office. Okay, I can hear you guys. You can hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I think we're just here for, hopefully just for the resolution. We sent in some comment responses to the engineering reports, but we didn't really feel like the site plan really needed any changes right now. But we can resubmit one if you guys have any comments.
You want to reopen? This is an adjourned hearing, correct?
Yeah.
You want to ask for a motion to reopen the hearing?
Yeah. I move that we open the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
I want to know about that little strip of land.
I know, we spent a lot of time trying to dig up what was going on with that, and we never really found anything conclusive. We found some evidence it's an easement, other evidence that they may own it outright, but in the end, we kind of just let it go and came up with the different plans to kind of just avoid it entirely.
It's going to remain a mystery in Dobbs Ferry for the next 100 years.
Yeah, I guess so.
So does anybody want to speak
Any
to this?
It seems fine.
public hearing? Is there anyone that wishes to speak to this? No, nobody online? Nobody in the room?
Okay.
It's Judson. I mean,
Gotta be somebody who wants to
Getting-
say something.
It's getting closer to my house. But the closer it gets, the better it gets.
Yeah, this one's pretty easy.
Yeah.
It's not.
This
okay.
is pretty straightforward.
All right. Well, excuse me. I move we close the public hearing. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
There was nobody online or anything, right?
No, there wasn't.
No interest at all. I can't talk.
That's what we like.
I do have a resolution here, however.
Mhm.
Village of Dobbs Ferry Planning Board Resolution granting site plan approval, property at 243 Judson Avenue. And, oh God, why is this one so long?
Because this is a site plan approval resolution. The other one's for recommendation.
And you don't need to read it verbatim.
You don't have to read it verbatim, and
I know.
It's really the now therefore be it resolved and the conditions
All
that are the
right.
most
Yeah.
important.
All right, I'll do the background. Whereas Ruthie and Avi Benzavi site plan approval to construct an addition for a mudroom and second floor bedroom on a one-family residential dwelling. The subject property is located at 243 Judson Avenue. The project site is located in the one-family residential 4 OF4 zoning. Whereas the project will result in construction and expansion of single-family residence on an approved lot and is classified under state environmental quality as a type 2 action. Whereas pursuant to various parts of the municipal law, the planning board has referred the application materials to the Westchester Department of Planning for their review and comments. And whereas the planning board conducted a duly noticed public hearing on September 9, 2021, at which time all those wishing to be heard were given the opportunity, and the public hearing was closed on September 9, 2021. And whereas the planning board has carefully examined materials submitted by the applicant and it lists a whole bunch of stuff. And then it says planning board determination, whereas the planning board is familiar with the project site in the general vicinity and has reviewed the application in accordance with the chapter 300 of zoning law. And we conducted an extensive review, and the planning board considered, among other things, traffic access, walkway circulation, stormwater, all sorts of other things. Following conditions must be met before a planning board chair may sign the approved site. You have to add language that says that approved, the planning board's approval is conditioned on the applicant receiving all approvals required by other governmental agencies. The applicant must address to the full satisfaction of the village engineer all outstanding stormwater maintenance agreements and engineering issues raised in the hearings and documents submitted to the board, including the September 7 engineering letter. That's probably the important one. And the other important one is the applicant shall pay all outstanding consultant review and legal fees in connection with the planning board review. And there's a lot of other things, but
Last few things are part of your zoning code that are required for all site plans.
I'm sorry.
The force and effect, the landscaping, commencing work, and issuance of certificate of occupancy to come directly from your zoning code and are required for all site plan approval applications.
Okay. And excuse me. And 6, issue of certificate of occupancy. No certificate shall be issued until all improvements shown on the site plan are installed or sufficient performance guarantee has been provided for the improvements not completed. The performance guarantee shall be posted in accordance with the procedures and according to the law. The amount of sufficiency guarantee shall be determined by the land use officer. 95% surety and 5% cash. I make a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Great.
I walked down Judson, and I noticed
Thank
that, that the wires on the lower, below Beachdale are on poles. And then they dive into the ground.
In my front yard.
And there are no wires. And it's beautiful for the rest of Judson. I mean, can't we bury the wires in Dobbs area? I mean, there's so many ugly.
It's always that last connection that makes it so difficult.
Really, huh?
Yeah.
And it's Con Edison that also makes it extremely difficult.
Because we've heard repeatedly that they're willing to do it, but they're not willing to pay to connect all the houses to their new underground cables.
Well, there's parts of Dobbs Ferry with they're all underground.
Yeah, you know, Judson Avenue,
It
it
really
starting in
looks-
front of my house.
It really looks good.
Yeah, it really makes such a big difference.
Yeah, I'm the last house. But the pole's on the edge of my property and then in front of my property, there's no wires.
Oh, that's good.
So.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
What else we got here?
Okay, I think we're down to item number 8, 14 Bel Air driveway, continuation of pre-submission conference for proposed additions and site improvements to existing home. 14 Bel Air driveway. Do you have anybody online?
Yes.
Good. I think.
Mitchell, can you hear us?
Sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes. And we can see you.
Friends in the background. Just thought I'd soften you up a little bit. Thank you for having me back. And I want to make this as quick as possible. I'm never done a planning board session with Dobbs Ferry before. And I'm assuming that this is the pre-submission conference is to direct me what I need, what I might be missing in my submittal documents. So any insights you have, I'm happy to hear it. And I'm sorry I can't be there in the flesh. I'm actually in Colorado right now.
No, I don't know.
Engineers.
So, both the engineer.
Chris is here, right? Yes. Chris from Dolph is on the Zoom.
Chris, can you hear us?
Yes, I'm on.
Okay. Yeah.
Should I share my screen to get a image of the project up?
Yes, please.
Okay, let's see if I can do this. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
I'm gonna quickly flip to the existing topographic survey of the property. I think a critical and weird thing about the property and the project, which is to replace this derelict garage. You can see my cursor going around in circles. And there's going to be some other site work, but this is the biggest part of it. Almost 3/4 of the elevation of the garage actually lies in Hastings, right? And almost the entire driveway lies within Hastings. Ed and Buddy Minozzi and myself had a phone conference about it. And essentially in Hastings, we're in conformance with all the required zoning and planning board requirements. So I don't have any public hearings there. But once again, the proposal is to remove this garage and to then do some site work and hardscape work on the site itself in the back, without really increasing the impervious surface. So that's the gist of it. And I'm going to flip over very quickly to the site plan that I submitted. We don't have any zoning issues with regard to the work. And again, we don't have any impervious coverage. We're not adding to the impervious coverage, although it's already existing, is somewhat in excess of what is allowed. So that's a concern, I think. And finally, we did go to the AHRB, who approved the project. And if Yair is still listening, he could pipe in if he wants to.
I could speak to this, Mr. Chairman, if you like.
Sure.
So, as Mitch said, this was confusing because a portion of it is in Hastings. And just as he said, it's true, he's adding only 10 square feet of impervious surface. We require stormwater retention at addition of 100 square feet, but because the property coverage was already over, but not so much in Dobbs as it is in Hastings, who doesn't want him to do anything, the applicant has graciously offered to voluntarily put in some stormwater retention, which I thought, solved any confusion and was a good compromise.
Okay.
Is the garage being replaced with a new structure?
That's correct.
Same footprint, basically.
Well, this doesn't seem like it has a large impact.
Master of understatement, Alan Hale.
It'll be better because now they're retaining water.
So what's our next step in with the goal of streamlining this?
Well, we can.
Ignore it, it'll go away. Could we set a public hearing
Yeah,
for next
we
month
need-
with
I
a
think-
resolution ready to go?
Yes.
I think we do a public hearing and go.
Yep.
We, both myself and Anthony submitted comments back on August 2nd to the applicant, and it would be helpful if the applicant would respond to those comments before next meeting as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
On August 2nd, I responded on the 6th. I don't know if this covers it, but the zoning table I submitted that actually. And again, the weird thing about the impervious coverage is that most of it is not actually in the Dobbs Ferry side. So I'm not really sure how to parse that because is it, these calculations are for the entire site, not just the portion of the site that's in Dobbs Ferry. But if you direct me to do that, I can work it out, you know, that way too. I'm just a little bit confused about it, honestly.
So I think there's both, and there's two memos, and I did not receive that memo. I'll follow up with the building department and I'll take a look at it. I believe if Ed is satisfied with what you submitted for the zoning table, that'll be fine. But it's really just, there's a few other additional comments that need to be addressed.
I'll make it my business to get on that right away if I haven't done it already. Yes, I do have one final question with regard to the submittal for the public hearing. My clients have asked that that at this time that I'm looking for something here, that this list of plantings that the landscape architect has provided, if they can hold that in abeyance until the next phase of the project. You can see they've specified some specimen trees and some shrubbery, but at this time, the goal would be to just plant grasses and wait until they can actually get their heads around and their wallets around a more extensive and comprehensive planting plan. So I don't know whether that's allowed or if this is something that has to be done in tandem with the actual construction work. I mean, obviously we'll plant to mitigate runoff, but and most of the plantings are like little flower beds and
Can they just
lawn,
submit
you
a
can see in the
simpler?
back here.
They should submit the simple plan.
I think that the way forward is just to submit a simpler landscape plan and we'll take a look at that.
Okay, let me see if I can pull that together or get the landscape architect to do so by our submission deadline. That would be great. If in fact I cannot get that in time for the October hearing, can we be pushed back to the December hearing? Is there one?
Every month.
I think that may. Yeah, okay, I think that's actually perfect. But I would like to see if I can get this happening right away.
Okay,
So do we call for a public hearing? Is that our next step?
Set a date,
let's do it.
and he would need to do the neighbor notifications and.
It's been done.
Oh, that's right. Here you do them initially. That's great.
Yeah,
Okay.
all right. I move we call for a public
Second.
hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
And that would be at the, I'm gonna get it right. this time. The October 7th
You got it.
meeting date.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
yeah, good. Thank you. Good
Thank you,
night.
people. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Rich.
Wake up those dogs. They look a little stiff.
Yeah. All right, item number 9 on the agenda, 7 Fairlawn Avenue. Pre-submission conference for proposed exterior additions to existing home.
I think that was the last thing on the agenda.
No, and then we got a vacant lot.
We have a Zoomer.
Yeah, Christina and Suzanne are coming on from Christina Griffin Architects.
Oh, she was just here.
I think she knew the meeting was gonna be long,
I
so she
know.
decided
I
to go.
There she is. You look familiar.
Hi, Christina.
Hi, how are you? I'm back.
Yeah.
Suzanne's here with me. I'm architect, she's project architect, and we're going to take you through drawings for a new outdoor living area for 7 Fairlawn Avenue. Suzanne's gonna put up the drawings.
Can you see them? I thought I had them up. No?
It's not shown.
Oh, I'll try again.
It was only showing partial. Yeah, perfect.
There you go.
Yeah? Oh, okay.
Okay, now we're the original architects for this house, and we were delighted to be asked to come back to design an outdoor space at the side and of the house. The purpose is to give them a shaded area, which they don't have at the moment. There's a lot of intense heat back there. So to provide a shaded outdoor living space that consists of a porch that has under it sitting area, kitchen, outdoor kitchen, and dining area, a plunge pool, and a patio. We are also, most importantly, we're replacing a retaining wall. There's a series of retaining walls that have failed that are along the street, and we're going to put a new retaining wall up, but we're actually covering those retaining walls with a plant bed that will have erosion control plants, like different types of ground cover on them, juniper, to go on that slope grade. We're working very closely with an engineer, Alex from Sessi Engineering, who should be with us tonight, to make sure that all the new retaining wall and any new structure is going to have to be sound, structurally sound. This new porch and patio actually has been designed so that the supports are within the limits of having structural members that will not have any negative impact on the existing retaining wall, which is this, if you can see my cursor here, I hope, this angular shape here is a low retaining wall at the edge of this level area on the back of the house. Between that retaining wall and our proposed retaining wall, we're planning to put a new porch and a new patio with this very small 8 by 11 foot plunge pool. If you've know this site, it's the whole area from this angular shaped retaining wall down is all a steep slope area. And if you look carefully at the site plan, you can see the dash lines of the existing retaining walls that have failed along Fairlawn Avenue, and we're planning to bury them. Yes, these dash lines are the existing walls that we're planning to demolish or just bury them under a slope grade.
Look, was this the property that came to us with a failed retaining wall previously?
Yeah.
The collapsed one?
And it's, yeah.
Yes.
You can see the wall here.
We have some, here are some photos of that wall.
Yeah.
That's the wall we know.
Yeah.
So Christina, are you addressing that wall or are you addressing the wall on the train track side, the downhill side?
This wall along the Fairlawn.
Okay.
We Dan and Beth Fothner hired Sessi Engineering, and they came up with a plan to demolish the walls. They're already fallen down, but the idea is to bury them under a slope grade. And Dan Fosner actually is on the Zoom with us, if you'd like to know the history behind that.
Does the slope grade need to be reinforced in some way, or?
You know what, we invited Alex here to join us, the engineer, so he can answer those kind of questions. Yes, I mean, the idea, of course, is to give that street the support that it needs to replace the wall with a new retaining wall, with one retaining wall and a slope grade going down to it.
Alex, can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Gotcha,
Yes.
gotcha, gotcha. Yeah, gotcha. Okay.
As I joined as a panelist, my screen went out for a minute, so I may have missed the last sentence or two. If there was a question addressed to me, can you please ask it again?
I think Rob Lane pointed it out for me that the failed wall will be put into a slope, but there's a new retaining wall at the bottom of where the failed walls were.
That's correct.
And that's going to be holding everything up.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, hopefully.
Wow. How high is this elevation of the slope?
The lower retaining wall that is at the base of that slope is a 5-foot wall. And then from the top of that wall, it slopes up to Fairlawn Ave. So the total height from Fairlawn Ave down to the lower yard is on the order of 15 to 18 feet. I can get an exact number.
So the slope is about 10 to 12 feet.
Yeah.
Yes.
You can see it here.
We also submitted the structural drawings.
Yep.
If you'd like to see the details of that wall.
That's the engineer's specialty.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well,
Alex, what sheet would you like?
So let's
Pull up.
take a look at W3,
Yeah,
the cross section in the top left corner.
okay.
So this here shows the proposed wall, which has the earth slope over the existing wall. The existing wall is the 3 tiers, which the lower 2 have at this point been undermined, and then you can see the 4 blocks at the base, which is the proposed gravity wall, which would then support these the upper walls and the slope. So that goes along the whole backyard, and the let's go over to W2.
Yep.
I'm sorry, where do you?
Page W2, the page before.
Yep. Oops, sorry.
well, we'll see him next month.
There you go. There we go.
So that runs from the corner of the house, which is on the left there, station 0, and runs to the right all the way to basically so that the entirety of the 3-tier walls would be covered by this new slope.
Right.
And then in order to close out the grades to the property on the right on this plan, which is south, a second leg of the wall comes out to be able to close the grades on the south side of the lot.
Yep. I'm just curious, the old block wall, did it have any ties back into the hillside?
The hillside going up to Fairlawn?
Yeah, I mean, were there anything tying the blocks back into the hillside?
Yes, you could see GeoGrid exposed through the face of the block. If I believe recalling the work that was being done on the site is largely what was the cause of the failure of the wall. So now replacing it
would normally you would excavate and slope out. You cannot do that because the roadway is there. So this solution is in order to leave and not have to excavate into Fairlawn Ave.
Gotcha. Wow, okay.
Okay. So,
So, back to the porch. So if you see our site plan, we also have a landscape architect and we have a layout for all the types of plants that we're planning to put on that slope grade. And then back to the blow up. Here's a blow up of the plan showing that we are, this porch is a roof with columns and it meets all the setback requirements, and we're under the lot coverage and impervious coverage for the site.
okay.
And I guess we'd like to know what our next step is for this, for the review process.
Where are we with the engineering reviews? I would think that would be a pretty important part of this.
Yeah.
So this was just submitted. So we, both myself as well as Anthony, issued memos this past week. So next month, we would anticipate the applicant providing responses. If the board is interested in opening up a public hearing next month, we can do so.
We think we're going to be ready.
Received those memos. I don't think we received those memos.
Okay, we'll follow up with you on that.
Okay, thank you.
No, we have not received any memos for this project.
So it sounds like we maybe need to have another pre-submission
It sounds like we're
until we get those resolved.
yeah. Yeah.
Are the memos substantial enough that they'll need to make?
Well,
changes?
there's some additional information needed, like erosion sediment control plan, stormwater plan. So yes, I would say they're substantial enough that there should be a resubmission from the applicant.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we have a preliminary layout from Hudson Engineering, and they will be providing more details for the stormwater system, erosion control details.
If I can jump in here, if you can go over to the photos of the wall, the existing wall that you have.
Yeah.
Yeah, right there at the bottom. So right now the walls are in a state that the wall is undermined. We're going into yet another season of winter months with this wall, and if keeping in mind that the state of the wall is in an undermined state and conditions such as snow, rain, freeze, and thaw can cause this wall to move further. I don't know if the what was just brought up about another planning submission before a open hearing, if there's any way to arrange this so that it could be done sooner rather than later. I think you have a condition that we want to get repaired as soon as possible.
Ed, correct me if I'm wrong, but if there's health or safety, or Dan, if there's health or safety issues, they can address that immediately, correct?
Yeah.
So this is supporting our village road. So my suggestion would be to set the public hearing, and hopefully they can, respond to the engineering issues before next month. And if they do, we can get a resolution going and approve this and get it moving. If not, if there's still issues, we can still continue the public hearing, but we should set it now.
For next month?
Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, all right.
So we can always adjourn it till
Oh, yeah.
November, right? So, okay.
We can adjourn it until March, I don't know.
You can, yeah.
All right.
Are these memos, the backup for these memos in the, yeah, they're attached to the agenda, so they're available online. I'm reading one right now. That one's from Nelson Pope and is, I'm sorry, is,
While you're looking at that, are there any other issues, non-engineering issues that we feel need to be looked at in more detail regarding this?
It's all compliant.
Well, let's see.
yeah, we have the engineer's memo. And we can get that over to you. We can, send that over to you electronically right away. And you can, ask for a motion to set the public hearing on October 7th.
I'm sorry.
No, it's all right.
It's way back.
Well, why don't we do that?
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. So the motion is that we set a public hearing for the next meeting, the October meeting, October 7th,
Second?
whenever it is.
7.
October 7th.
7th.
Yeah.
Okay.
Does the planning board ever have emergency sessions?
No. We'd have to be noticed some. I don't know how emergency you can get.
Well, your a special meeting can be called. There are much reduced requirements if they're in an emergency situation. So yes, you can conduct a special meeting. You need to.
No.
But for the applicant's edification, the last two items attached to tonight's agenda on the website and the building department's project website, the last two items under 7 Fairlawn are the memos we're talking about.
We'll take a look at them. Thank you.
What about the AHRB? Do they have to get involved in this?
Not for the wall.
Well, not for the wall, but isn't the porch, patio, outdoor kitchen part of it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So the motion's been made. I seconded it. Do you guys vote for that?
Yeah, we all voted.
All right.
We all voted.
Getting a little punchy here.
Okay, are we set, Christine?
I have a question. Can we go to the ARB while the planning board is reviewing the project, or?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
We could submit for that. Okay,
Yes.
great.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, we'll do that. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, good night.
All right, good night. Bye.
Okay, last item on the agenda, item number 10. It's listed as a vacant lot. Pre-submission conference for proposed new house on vacant lot off Priory Road. That's not real specific.
Good evening. Andrew Cortese, the applicant, and should we pull up that?
Who should it be?
Is there somebody who's on?
I'm not sure if Hudson Engineering's on.
No.
Public plan or?
We have a plan. I have a plan.
Well, but here we are, you know, according to the memo we've seen, you don't actually have frontage on a road,
Okay.
which is kind of a legal issue beyond our purview, as I understand it.
And the other thing is on September in 2005, that road was demapped. So I'm not sure who owns, the village owns
The
it?
village, yeah, when a street is demapped, the village takes control over it. So any improvements in that road would be subject to a license agreement from the Board of Trustees. That being said, the last few times demapped streets, construction on demapped streets have come up, we've asked the applicant to search through the title documents because there are various ways streets are formed. They might be formed as a part of a subdivision approval. They might be formed and offered for dedication and then not improved. And in some cases, the deeds the deeds to the lots on a paper street reference rights to the center line of the street. And in sometimes the deeds to the street reference us to the right of way of the street. So if in fact the street's been demapped and the applicant can show that he owns half of that street now because he owns the rights up to the middle point of the street, then it might be a matter of a driveway improvement. If in fact the village owns the entire width of the right of way of the street, then there may be requirements to improve it to the street standards in order to obtain the necessary frontage to develop. I've done a fair amount of research on the demapping process and the law which followed way back when, and the legislative intent for that. There's a lot of conversation in the minutes that they talked about. This would provide the level of control from the village to determine what's built in these roadways and how they would proceed. I'm not sure just by looking at this quick plan or sketch, is it part of a subdivision? Is it, I mean, where is this just a survey that's been done, or is it actually based on a portion of a survey map?
That portion is basically a paper road that basically goes up probably almost 1,000 feet up in and connects to the preserve up top. There's probably like 15 or roughly around 15 lots that come off there.
Okay, and the street that you show on the plan
Does not exist right now.
from Briary, the entire street up the knoll,
That's the paper street.
that's the paper street that's been demapped.
That's correct.
Okay, and do you know, if you know, that this is part of a filed map, a subdivision map? with the
No, I
county?
don't know that. Right now, I'm a contract of ND on that first lot right at the corner. The other lots are past that one that that you see right now. We came here just to get a little clarification on, how do you determine, with accessibility with the.
Right, and do you understand what I've said?
No, I
Like,
understand.
the deed to this property may say and rights to the
Yeah,
center line.
Like in other municipalities, sometimes half the road is on one portion and half to the neighbor, and they join them together, so where would I get that? Would I have to go get a title report on the specific property, but if it's owned by the town.
No, the deed to the actual parcel you're showing would have a reference to the rights in the bed of the street.
I got you.
That would help. And also, if you can obtain by map number, the filed map that caused this subdivision to create these lots, that would go a long way to helping us to understand how it came to be.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, the fact that it's called the knoll means that somebody laid out these lots.
Yeah,
and
that's
this road,
50, that's
right?
50 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember, do you actually?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so
So
having,
presumably, if you had that subdivision plat, it would tell you,
it would tell us more than what is shown just on this little
Right.
excerpt.
Well, years ago, when I lived on Briary Road, I was actually the one that started the whole demapping process. So it was my understanding, I lived on Briary and I owned 2 lots, and there was a paper street between my 2 lots. And it was my understanding that when the demapped properties, the demapped streets were no longer able to be built on, whoever owned the property was at the center of it, that became your property.
If in fact the deed,
But I don't know if the village ever actually,
The previous
Implemented.
times we run across this,
Yeah.
that step was not taken.
I don't
The
think it
final
was
step was
implemented,
not
right.
taken.
I would guess that that's really true.
So it's,
So-
there's some chance that's the case here.
yeah.
because in some cases, it would revert and we could deed it. and then you'd be done. But in
But
other
still-
cases, it would only be the frontage on what is the paper street, and then the village, we had this with a driveway application that came before you and then was sent to the village board of trustees for a license agreement. And in that case, the village owned the street, demapped as it was. But that lot in question had actual frontage, although unusable frontage, on a different street. In this case, it's clearly landlocked. So it might be that by virtue of the deed, he owns to the center, and then it would be developing.
It's not a street. So there was a house, there was an owner on 87 Briary, and he was right next to that paper street. And he owned a lot behind his house that faced Briary. And he wanted to use that same paper street that you are proposing. And the village said that he would have to, at that time, he would have to develop the entire street.
You have to improve the street to get
Right,
the
in
frontage.
order to get the frontage to be able, well, actually, I don't know if the frontage, full frontage, but it doesn't matter. But anyway, so he thought it was too costly. You'd have to put in plumbing, you'd have to put in electric, everything. So what he did was he owned the house facing the street. So he created an easement and built a house behind it, which no longer can happen.
Which was the purpose of demapping the streets, is you still need actual frontage.
Correct.
So you're gonna need frontage.
On a town road.
And the first question is, do you own to the center? And the second question is, can you get the copy of the filed map?
And can you get access to your property?
Yeah, I mean.
These
no,
two
but
houses
if he-
probably own.
If he owns to the center,
Then the neighbor next door would
the
own.
neighbor owns to the center, and he could buy that little strip from the neighbor, and then he would have a driveway.
Well, but
If they
it-
own it.
it's got to be 25 feet wide, or it's
All right,
a
yeah.
valid flag lot.
So when they demap the paper roads, even if the lots were created prior to the demapping, it would still take effect, right? There's no seniority of.
No,
eight,
because,
you know.
because the code requires frontage
I get it.
and on a public,
Mhm.
an improved public street.
So you would have to build a public road up to the front of the lot in
You have
order
to
to get
develop the
frontage.
whole road is what they had originally
Yeah,
asked.
it depends, again, on what the rights are in that street. If in fact you have rights up to the center and it's been demapped, it would be you'd have to look to see then the neighbor next door, which has actual frontage on Briary, might not have the same rights.
Well,
If
this house actually, the frontage is on the paper street. Their driveway is on
Aerial
Briary.
rates of that aerial.
So their front door is on the paper street, which is really weird.
So there is the next door neighbor, which is on the corner of Briary and the the former paper street, might have similar rights. And then there would have to be a private agreement or, but really the essential question is who owns that street at this point? It might have been deeded to you, rights to the center line, or it might, in the demapping process, have fallen into the control of the village.
Okay, so we'll do some research on that.
Mhm.
We actually, probably in the 90s, we did, off of Northfield, Lewis Avenue, Russell to Lewis. So we did that whole road in there and we did 8 houses in the back in the 90s. But at that time, it was, a portion of everybody's land on each side together created the easement for the town road.
It might be that way, in the case of the former application here, it wasn't that way. They did not own to the center line of that paper street.
All right, so we'll do some research and.
And if you could get a copy of your deed,
Sure.
The deed to that property, you're a contract vendee, so you would have access to that deed. If you could get that over it, if you look at it, it probably references a part of a filed map number XYZ filed with the land records, and then you would have the subdivision map number, and you'd have to order that from the county land record.
Okay.
Okay?
All right, great.
I hope that's,
Thank you.
I hope that's helpful.
Oh, it is,
Just
it is.
a little
Thank
helpful. And I'll stop talking.
All right, no, that was excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, and might I suggest the project to for the village to give the land to the adjacent owners,
Well, I think-
continue?
I think they
Seems like we
want,
keep having this conversation.
but I
Sorry.
think that they wanted to, the legislative intent, from what I could gather from the minutes, was they wanted to have the control on a case-by-case basis. Because they'd have to order title for each of these lots on every paper street in order to determine who has the rights to it. So in this case, it's the applicant's resources being used to determine what rights they have to the bed of the street.
Yeah.
It's an expensive process. You'd have to run a title search on every single lot on every DMAP street. So I think.
That's why it's not happening.
Right, and they wanted, in their discussions, they wanted to mandate the frontage. So as a result of that, each time they'll come in and say, and then we can provide them instructions and they can come back with proof.
Thank you.
This is why we're on the planning board.
That's right.
This is the interesting stuff, right?
It's
Yeah.
exciting, isn't it?
Yeah, no, this is good.
And you have if you're done, you want to take a motion?
I'd make a motion that we adjourn.
There you go.
All in
All
favor?
in
Yes.
favor?
To October 7th.
You don't use, Steve doesn't use the.